In what's being called one of the most important cases of the social media age, justices heard arguments in this case that pits national security against free speech. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchner has the latest from the Supreme Court. Tara?
Jenna, the justices will decide if TikTok's Chinese ownership poses a credible threat to national security or if the government's actions go too far. The case centers on a recent law requiring ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese parent company, to divest its U.S. operations by January 19th or face a nationwide ban. Justice Brett Kavanaugh asked what would happen if the law isn't blocked.
At least as I understand it, we go dark. Essentially, the platform shuts down.
The Biden administration supports the law and argues it's needed to prevent China from accessing American users' data or manipulating content. TikTok claims it's a violation of the First Amendment. President-elect Donald Trump has requested a delay in enforcing the law until after his inauguration. Chief Justice John Roberts said his main concern is that the parent company is required to cooperate with the Chinese government.
The ultimate company that controls it, ByteDance, was found by Congress, and I quote this, to be subject to Chinese laws that require it to assist or cooperate with the Chinese government's intelligence work.
As to their First Amendment argument, TikTok and its supporters claim the platform is a vital tool for expression and commerce, with 170 million U.S. users. Justice Amy Coney Barrett raised concerns about TikTok's examples of free speech, pointing out that the concern lies in the potential for covert content manipulation.
A lot of your examples talk about, including the Bezos one, the right of an American citizen to repeat what a foreign entity says or say, you know, I'm hitching my wagon to China, I want to say everything China does. Here, the concern is about the covert content manipulation piece of the algorithm. That is something that ByteDance wants to speak, right?
Justice Sonia Sotomayor asked about the data collected by TikTok.
From what I understand from the briefs, not only is it getting your information, it's asking, and most people give it permission, to access your contact list, whether that contact list has permitted them to or not. So they can now have data about all of your contacts and anything you say about them.
As roughly half of Americans use TikTok for entertainment and information, the outcome of this case could have far-reaching implications for how the U.S. handles foreign-owned technology platforms and national security. And the justices now face a tight deadline with a ruling expected before January 19th. For now, TikTok's fate, Jenna, remains uncertain.
All right, Tara Merchner at the Supreme Court. Thank you, Tara. And here with us now is Dr. Casey Myers, Director of Graduate Studies at the School of Communication at Virginia Tech. Casey, welcome. So what did you make of today's oral arguments, and did you get any kind of sense of how the justices might rule here?
Well, it's anyone's guess how the justices will rule, and one of the court cases is that you really have to wait and see the final result. There's a lot of prognostication that you can do about how they will rule based on questions. But if just based on the questions alone and some of their subtext of what they were saying, it seems that they are very likely to uphold the law. Again, they were seemed in the questions to be very swayed by some of the national security arguments being made by the Biden administration. They also seem to be concerned around the national security issues around data as it relates to TikTok and their ability to turn data over to the Chinese government.
Yeah. You mentioned national security pitted against freedom of speech, really, in this case, those two issues on the line. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Casey?
Well, one of the things that the case is about is this forced divestiture based upon the fact that the government that TikTok owner resides in is China. And then under Chinese law, the thought is that this could be used as a mechanism to give data from the users of TikTok, and it's estimated around 170 million Americans are on the platform, to the government, and that could be used for all sorts of nefarious purposes. And so there's a national security dimension to the ban. And in fact, that's why it received bipartisan support in Congress. Now, on the other side is the First Amendment, and we've not had a case quite like this around ownership issues and content control as it relates to social media platforms, and not quite the same way. However, there is some precedent for there to be regulations around non-U.S. company ownership of resources and industries that are potentially very impactful. So the idea that that you could regulate an industry based on what country owns it, or what country's what country's parent company owns it, is got some precedent in other industries, and so it's unique in this regard to the First Amendment and unique to social media.
Yeah, President-elect Trump is among the people who want to TikTok to stay in the United States. If, though, the Supreme Court does strike it down, is there anything he can do after he officially takes office January 20th?
That's a great question, and one of which was brought up, I think, in an amicus brief filed by President Trump, who had asked the Supreme Court to kind of delay their decision. Of course, there would be kind of this implementation phase of the divestiture, and that has been January 19th is the deadline. That's another thing that kind of came up in the oral argument is, would January 19th be a kind of a day that they have to sell by, or could the process begin? Could they get an extension on that date, given the fact that this is an expensive company, should ByteDance, who owns TikTok, decide that they're going to sell? But again, that is sort of speculative at this point, what Trump could do. There could be an implementation side of this that remains to be seen post-inauguration.
Yeah, we will wait and see. It's only 10 days away now. Dr. Casey Myers with Virginia Tech, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.